Commander Park Ji-ho stood on the bridge of the Soul's Promise and watched the massive alien ships through the main screen. His hands were steady, but inside his chest his heart was beating fast. The Corvan Empire's fleet stretched across space, like a wall of metal and light. Each of their ships was 10 times bigger than his own vessel. "Sir, we're getting a signal from the lead ship," said Communications Officer Kim Nari. She was young, maybe 25, with short black hair and nervous eyes. This was her first deep space mission, and Ji-ho could see the fear on her face. "Put it through," Ji-ho said. He straightened his blue uniform and tried to look calm. Behind him, his crew of 30 humans worked at their stations. They all knew what was at stake. Earth had sent them here to make peace with the Corvan Empire. If they failed, war might come to their homeworld. The screen flickered, and suddenly a huge reptilian face appeared. The creature had dark green scales, yellow eyes like a snake, and teeth that looked sharp enough to cut metal. This was Ambassador Crixtal of the Corvan Empire. When he spoke, his voice was deep and rough, like rocks grinding together. "So these are the humans," Crixtal said. He leaned forward, and Ji-ho could see more Corvans behind him. They were all tall, maybe 8 feet, with long arms and clawed hands. "You look even smaller than our reports said." "Ambassador Crixtal," Ji-ho said, bowing slightly. "I am Commander Park Ji-ho of the United Earth Defense Force. We come in peace, hoping to discuss trade and friendship between our peoples." Crixtal made a sound that might have been laughter, but it sounded more like a growl. "Trade? What could your primitive species possibly offer the Corvan Empire? We have seen your technology. Metal ships pushed by chemical explosions. How quaint." Behind Ji-ho, Engineer Choi Dongwoo frowned. He was a big man with thick glasses who had designed many of the ship's systems. Ji-ho knew that Choi was proud of their technology, even if it looked simple compared to the alien ships around them. "Our people are resourceful," Ji-ho said carefully. "We have much to learn from each other." "Learn?" Crixtal's yellow eyes seemed to glow brighter. "Yes. Perhaps you could learn to serve your betters. The Corvan Empire has ruled 3 star systems for over 1,000 years. We have quantum weapons, energy shields, and faster-than-light travel that makes your ships look like toys." Dr. Kim Nari, who was also the ship's science officer, stepped forward. "Sir, if I may," she said to Ji-ho, then looked at the screen. "Ambassador Crixtal, humanity has many skills. We are good at solving problems, adapting to new situations, and working together. Perhaps—" "Silence!" Crixtal's voice boomed through the speakers. Several Corvans behind him hissed, showing their pointed teeth. "I will not be lectured by a child of an inferior species. You humans have been in space for what, a few decades? We have been conquering worlds since before your ancestors learned to make fire." 300 kilometers away, Captain Lee Min-ho watched the meeting from his own ship, the Busan's Courage. He commanded a small fleet of 12 human vessels, all that Earth could spare for this mission. Compared to the 50 Corvan warships surrounding them, his fleet looked pathetic. But Lee had been a soldier for 20 years, and he had learned never to judge a fight before it started. "Captain," his weapons officer said quietly, "their ships are scanning us. Deep scans. Looking at our hull structure, our weapons, everything." "Let them look," Lee said. "They'll see exactly what we want them to see." Back on the Soul's Promise, the meeting was getting worse. Crixtal had stood up, his full height making him look like a giant on the screen. Other Corvans were moving around behind him, and Ji-ho could see weapons on their belts. "Let me make something clear, Commander Park Ji-ho," Crixtal said. His voice was cold now, like winter wind. "The Corvan Empire does not make friends with insects. We conquer them or we step on them. Your little blue world sits in space that we have marked for expansion. You have 2 choices." "What choices?" Ji-ho asked, though he already feared the answer. "Submit to Corvan rule. Become our workers, our servants. Give us your world peacefully, and we will let most of your kind live. Or—" Crixtal smiled, showing all his sharp teeth. "We will take your world by force, and far fewer of you will survive the experience." The bridge of the Soul's Promise went completely quiet. Kim Nari's face had gone pale. Choi Dongwoo's hands were clenched into fists. Even the youngest crew members understood what they had just heard. The Corvins weren't interested in peace. They wanted Earth. And they thought. Humans were too weak to stop them. "I need to discuss this with my government," Jiho said slowly. "Of course you do," Crixtal said. "You have 72 hours to give us your answer. My fleet will wait here while you run home to your leaders like good little pets." The screen went black. For a long moment, nobody on the bridge moved. Then, Kim Nari turned to Jiho with wide eyes. "Sir, they're really going to attack Earth if we don't surrender?" "That's what it sounds like," Jiho said. He walked to his captain's chair and sat down heavily. "Choi, start preparing a data packet for Earth. Include everything we recorded of this meeting, plus all our scans of their ships." "Yes, sir," Choi said. "Should I include our other observations?" Jiho nodded. Choi understood. They had been doing more than just talking during this meeting. Hidden sensors had been studying Corvin technology, recording their energy signatures, analyzing their ship designs. Earth's scientists would want all of that information. "Kim Nari, open a secure channel to Captain Lee," Jiho ordered. Lee's face appeared on a smaller screen. His expression was grim. "I heard everything, Commander. My fleet is ready to escort you home." "Any thoughts?" Jiho asked. Lee was quiet for a moment. "They're arrogant. They think we're bugs because our ships don't look as fancy as theirs. That might be useful." "How?" "Bugs can bite," Lee said simply. On the Corvin command ship, Ambassador Crixtal was meeting with his military advisors. War General Thexnor, a massive Corvin with battle scars across his scales, was studying readings from their scans of the human ships. "What do you think of their fleet?" Crixtal asked. "Pathetic," Thexnor said without hesitation. "Steel hulls, chemical rockets, primitive computers. Their largest ship has less firepower than one of our escort vessels. If they refuse our generous offer, we could destroy their entire fleet in minutes. And their home world? Even easier. They have a few orbital platforms and some missile bases, but nothing that could threaten a proper Corvin fleet. We could have their planet conquered in days." Another Corvin officer, science leader Vexara, looked up from her readings. "There is something strange, though. Their technology is crude, but it's also efficient. They get good performance from simple systems, and their ship designs show signs of rapid improvement. They've learned a lot in a short time." "All species improve," Crixtal said dismissively. "But they started so far behind us that it doesn't matter. By the time they catch up to where we are now, we'll be centuries ahead of them." "Still," Vexara said, "I recommend we study them more carefully before—" "Before what?" Thexnor interrupted. "Before we waste time on insects? These humans are exactly what they appear to be. A young, weak species that happened to develop space travel. Nothing more." Crixtal nodded. "I agree. They're just humans. What could they possibly do against the might of the Corvin Empire?" Meanwhile, light years away, Admiral Song Hyejin sat in her office on Earth's orbital command station. She was reading the first reports from the diplomatic mission, and her face was stone-cold serious. At 50 years old, she had spent her entire adult life preparing Earth's defenses for exactly this situation. "They want us to surrender," she said to the empty room. Then she pressed a button on her desk. "General Staff meeting in 1 hour. Activate Protocol 7. Her aide's voice came through the speaker. "Ma'am, are you sure? Protocol 7 hasn't been tested." "It's about to be," Admiral Song said. She looked out her window at Earth below, blue and beautiful, and totally unaware of what was coming. "The Corvins think we're just primitive humans with simple technology. Let's see how long they keep thinking that." She stood up and walked to a wall safe. Inside were sealed orders that she had hoped never to open. But now, as she broke the security seals, Admiral Song allowed herself a thin smile. The Corvins had made one very big mistake. They had underestimated humanity. And humans, as they were about to learn, were very good at making their enemies regret that mistake. The Soul's Promise arrived at Earth after 3 days of faster-than-light travel. Commander Park Jiho stood on the bridge, watching his home world grow larger on the main screen. Earth looked peaceful from space, with white clouds swirling over, blue oceans and brown continents. But Jiho knew that peace was about to end. "Sir, we're getting a priority signal from Admiral Song," Kim Nari reported from her station. "Put her through," Jiho said. Admiral Song Hyejin's face appeared on the screen. She looked tired, like she hadn't slept in days. Behind her, Jiho could see busy officers moving around the command center. Commander Park, I've read your report, Admiral Song said. The Corvan demand for surrender has been rejected by the World Council. We will not give up Earth without a fight. Understood, Admiral, Jiho said. What are our orders? Report to Luna Base for debriefing. Captain Lee's fleet will join the outer defense perimeter. We're expecting the Corvans to move soon. She was right. Even as the Soul's Promise headed toward the moon, long-range sensors detected movement at the edge of the solar system. The Corvan fleet was advancing, but not toward Earth. They were heading for Titan, the mining colony around Saturn. Lieutenant Commander Jang Siwon was on patrol duty near Titan when the attack began. His ship, the Inchen's Pride, was small and fast, designed for reconnaissance rather than fighting. When his sensors detected the approaching Corvan fleet, Siwon immediately sent a warning to Governor Yoon Ji-soo on the colony. Governor, this is Lieutenant Commander Jang on patrol ship Inchen's Pride. I have 50 Corvan warships approaching your position. You need to evacuate immediately. Governor Yoon Ji-soo had been running the Titan mining operation for 5 years. She was a tough woman who had handled equipment failures, worker strikes, and bad weather. But alien invasion was something new. How long do we have? She asked over the communication link. Siwon checked his readings. The Corvan ships were moving fast, faster than human ships could travel. Maybe 6 hours. But Governor, I don't think 6 hours will be enough to evacuate 50,000 people. Then we'll have to try, Yoon said firmly. Begin emergency evacuation procedures. All mining ships, cargo haulers, and personal shuttles are to start ferrying people to the escape pods immediately. Around Titan, the scene became chaotic very quickly. Mining ships that normally carried ore started loading families instead. Cargo haulers designed for equipment were packed with workers and their children. The colony's small fleet of shuttles flew back and forth between the surface installations and the evacuation ships, but the Corvans arrived faster than expected. Siwon watched his long-range sensors with growing alarm. They're accelerating. They'll be here in 2 hours, not 6. On Titan's main platform, Governor Yoon looked at the evacuation status. Only 15,000 people had been moved to safety. 35,000 were still on the colony, including children, elderly workers, and medical patients who couldn't be moved quickly. We need more time, she said to her staff. I might be able to give you some. Siwon's voice came through the speakers. The Inchen's Pride isn't much of a warship, but maybe I can slow them down. Lieutenant Commander, that's suicide, Yoon said. Your ship can't fight 50 Corvan warships. No, but I can make them stop and deal with me. Even a few minutes might save lives. Before anyone could argue, Siwon cut the communication and turned his ship toward the approaching enemy fleet. The Inchen's Pride was a small ship with a crew of only 12 people. Against the massive Corvan warships, it looked like a minnow swimming toward a school of sharks. But Siwon had been a fighter pilot before becoming a patrol captain, and he knew how to make small, fast ships dangerous. All hands, prepare for combat, he announced to his crew. We're going to hit them fast and hard, then get out before they can respond. His weapons officer, a young man named Park Sun-ho, looked nervous. Sir, our missiles won't even scratch their shields. Maybe not, Siwon said, but they don't know that yet. The Corvan fleet was arranged in a standard formation, with the largest ships in the center and smaller escorts spread around the edges. Siwon aimed for one of the escort ships and fired everything he had. Missiles streaked through space, followed by energy beams from the ship's small plasma cannons. The weapons hit the Corvan ship's shields and exploded in bright flashes, but caused no real damage. However, the attack had the effect Siwon wanted. The entire Corvan fleet stopped advancing and turned to face the tiny human ship. Unknown vessel, came a harsh voice over the radio. You will surrender immediately or be destroyed. Instead of answering, Siwon fired again, this time at a different ship. Again, no damage, but the Corvans were clearly annoyed. Several ships broke formation to chase the Inchen's Pride. For 20 minutes, Siwon played a deadly game of cat and mouse with the Corvan escorts. His ship was faster than theirs, and he used that advantage to stay ahead of their weapons. But he couldn't run forever, and the delay he was providing wasn't enough. On Titan, the evacuation was going as fast as possible, but it still wasn't fast enough. Governor Yoon watched the numbers with despair. 28,000 people evacuated, 22,000 still on the colony. Then the Corvin main fleet reached Titan. War General Thexanor stood on the bridge of his flagship and looked at the human mining colony. It was a collection of metal platforms and towers built on Titan's surface and in orbit around the moon. Thousands of small lights showed where humans lived and worked. "Scan for military installations," he ordered. "Sir, there are no military targets," his science officer reported. "This appears to be a civilian mining operation." "Irrelevant," Thexanor said. "The humans need to learn the price of defying the Corvin Empire. Destroy it all." The bombardment began without warning. Massive energy beams lanced down from the Corvin ships, hitting the mining platforms and residential areas. Explosions lit up Titan's atmosphere as buildings and equipment were vaporized. The colony's shields, designed to protect against meteor impacts and radiation, lasted only seconds against military-grade weapons. Governor Yoon was in the main command center when the first energy beam hit the north platform. The building shook like an earthquake, and all the lights went out for a moment. "Shields are down!" someone shouted in the darkness. "All remaining ships, emergency departure now!" Yoon ordered. "Don't wait for full loads, just go!" The last evacuation. Ships lifted off from Titan as the colony died around them. Cargo haulers overloaded with people struggled to reach escape velocity, while Corvin weapons turned the surface installations into fields of fire and molten metal. Lieutenant Commander Jang Si-won tried to help, but his small ship could do nothing against the massive bombardment. He watched helplessly as the place where 50,000 people had lived and worked was reduced to burning wreckage in less than an hour. When it was over, Titan was dead. The mining equipment that had taken years to build was gone. The residential areas where families had lived were craters. Of the 50,000 people who had called Titan home, barely 30,000 had escaped. Si-won broadcast on all emergency frequencies. "This is Lieutenant Commander Jang to all Earth forces. Titan colony has been destroyed. Repeat, Titan colony has been destroyed. Estimated 20,000 civilian casualties." The message reached Earth 12 hours later. Admiral Song Hye-jin stood in the command center reading the casualty reports. 20,000 civilians dead. Families, workers, children, people who had never hurt anyone, killed because they happened to live in a place the Corvins wanted to control. "Admiral," her communications officer said, "we're receiving a broadcast from the Corvin fleet. They're transmitting on all frequencies." "Put it through." War General Thexanor's scarred face appeared on every screen in the command center. His yellow eyes seemed to glow with satisfaction. "People of Earth," he said, "you have seen what happens to those who resist the Corvin Empire. The mining colony was just the beginning. We are now moving toward your inner system. You have 24 hours to surrender unconditionally, or we will destroy every human settlement between here and your home world." The transmission showed images of Titan burning, of the mining platforms being vaporized, of evacuation ships fleeing through fields of debris. "Your resistance is futile," Thexanor continued. "Surrender now, or watch your worlds burn one by one. We will take your planet eventually. The only question is, how many of your people will die first?" The broadcast ended, leaving the command center in silence. "Admiral," someone said quietly, "long-range sensors show the Corvin fleet moving toward the Jupiter system. They'll reach our outer defense platforms in 18 hours. Admiral Song looked around at her staff. She saw anger on every face and fear, but also determination. These people had all sworn to defend Earth, and they weren't going to back down. "Now! Signal all fleet commanders," she said. "Activate Protocol 7. All ships are to take positions according to the Prometheus plan." "Ma'am," her aide said carefully, "the Prometheus plan hasn't been fully tested. We don't know if it will work." "We're about to find out," Admiral Song said. She turned to look at Earth through the command center's main window. The planet looked so peaceful, so beautiful. But the Corvins were coming, and they had already proven they would kill civilians without hesitation. "Send a message to all colony worlds," she ordered. "Tell them to..." Dr. Seo Minji had been waiting for this moment for 15 years. Deep beneath Luna Base, in laboratories that didn't officially exist, she stood before a massive steel door marked with warning signs in 12 languages. Her security card opened, the first lock. Her handprint opened the second. Her retina scan opened the third. Inside, the Prometheus laboratory hummed with activity. Scientists and engineers who had worked in secret for over a decade were finally able to reveal their life's work. Tables covered with strange devices filled the main floor. In the center of the room, a holographic display showed detailed plans for ships that looked like normal human vessels, but carried technology that would have seemed impossible just months ago. "Dr. Seo," called engineer Kim Won-sok from across the room. "The retrofit teams are ready. How many ships do we convert first?" "All of them," Dr. Seo said firmly. "Every ship in the fleet gets the full package. Adaptive armor, quantum disruptors, neural targeting systems, everything." Kim Won-seok's eyes widened. "Ma'am, that will take our entire supply of processed xenomaterials. If something goes wrong, we're all dead anyway," Dr. Seo interrupted. "The Corvins just killed 20,000 civilians on Titan. They're not going to show mercy to Earth." The xenomaterials Kim mentioned were humanity's greatest secret. 20 years ago, a deep space probe had discovered a derelict alien ship floating in the Kuiper Belt. The vessel was old, abandoned, and completely empty, but its technology was centuries ahead of anything humans had ever seen. The ship had been brought back to Earth in pieces, hidden from the public, and studied by the best scientists humanity could find. Dr. Seo had been part of that team since the beginning. They had learned how to duplicate some of the alien technology, though they still didn't understand how most of it worked. "The quantum disruptors are installed on the first squadron," reported Dr. Park Yuna from her workstation. She was young, maybe 30, but she had designed some of their most advanced weapons. "Field tests show they can penetrate standard energy shields." "Good," Dr. Seo said. "What about the neural targeting systems?" "Operational," said Dr. Lee Kyung-jin, an older man with gray hair who specialized in computer systems. "The pilots will be able to predict enemy movements up to 3 seconds in advance. It's like giving them the ability to see the future." Across the lunar surface, similar scenes were playing out in hidden facilities. The Prometheus project wasn't just about new weapons. It was about completely rebuilding humanity's military capabilities using technology that the Corvans couldn't possibly expect. Commander Kang Junho received his sealed orders while his ship, the Daegu's Thunder, was docked at a secret asteroid base. The orders were simple: report to Facility 7 for routine maintenance. But when he arrived, he found teams of technicians ready to strip his ship down to its basic framework and rebuild it with systems he had never seen before. "Sir," his chief engineer said nervously, "these modifications, are they safe?" "We're about to find out," Kang said. He had been briefed on the Prometheus project years ago but sworn to secrecy. Now, watching his ship being transformed into something that looked the same but was completely different inside, he felt both excited and terrified. The new technology was impressive but dangerous. The adaptive armor could change its structure to absorb different types of energy attacks, but it required enormous amounts of power. The quantum disruptors could tear through enemy shields, but they were unstable and might explode if used incorrectly. The neural targeting systems could predict enemy movements, but they put tremendous strain on the pilot's brain. "It's like giving a Stone Age warrior a plasma rifle," muttered Dr. Choi Min-soo, one of the project's senior scientists. "Incredibly powerful, but we're not sure we know how to use it properly." Meanwhile, Captain Lim Tae-hyun was getting his first look at his upgraded ship, the Incheon's Fury. From the outside, it looked exactly like a standard human cruiser. The hull was the same gray metal, the engines were the same chemical rockets. Even the weapons appeared to be normal missile launchers, but appearances were deceiving. "Captain," his weapons officer said excitedly, "these aren't normal missiles. The warheads contain something called quantum destabilizers. According to the manual, they can collapse energy shields from the inside." "And look at this," added his navigation officer. "The computer system has been completely replaced. It can process information 100 times faster than our old systems, and it's connected to some kind of prediction network." Lim walked around his bridge, noting all the changes. New displays showed tactical information he had never seen before. The pilot's chair had been fitted with neural interface cables. Even the ship's engines, while they looked the same, were producing twice as much power as before. "Sir," his communications officer said, "we're getting a message from Admiral Song. All Prometheus ships are to form up near Mars for final testing." As the secret fleet assembled, its true size became apparent. What the Corvins thought was humanity's entire military force was actually just the visible part. Hidden shipyards had been building vessels in secret for years. Old ships had been upgraded with alien technology. New ships had been designed from the ground up, using principles that human science barely understood. Captain O. Min-jae commanded one of the new ships, the Soul's Vengeance. His vessel was built entirely using xenomaterials, and it could do things that seemed to violate the laws of physics. Its engines could accelerate the ship faster than should be possible. Its weapons could fire projectiles that passed through normal matter but destroyed energy fields. Its hull could become temporarily invisible to most sensors. "This is incredible," O said to his crew as they ran their first test flight. "We're moving at speeds that should flatten us against the walls, but the inertial compensators are keeping us comfortable." "Sir," his science officer reported, "I'm reading some kind of interference from the ship's AI system. It's almost like it's trying to communicate with us." That was another secret of the Prometheus project. The alien ship they had found hadn't been completely empty. Deep in its computer core, they had discovered what appeared to be an artificial intelligence. The AI was damaged, incomplete, but it seemed willing to help humanity understand the technology. Dr. Seo called it the teacher, and she believed it was the ghost of whatever species had built the original ship. Whether it was truly alive or just a very sophisticated computer program, nobody knew. But it had taught humanity how to build weapons that could challenge the Corvin Empire. On Mars, Admiral Ryu Jae-won watched the Prometheus fleet assemble. He commanded Earth's official military forces, but today he was seeing humanity's true power for the first time. Ships that looked familiar were demonstrating capabilities that seemed impossible. "Admiral," his tactical officer reported, "the test runs are exceeding all expectations. The quantum disruptors are penetrating simulated Corvin shields with 90% success rate. The neural targeting systems are giving our pilots reaction times faster than our computers can measure." "What about the adaptive armor?" "Incredible, sir. We hit the test ships with everything we had, and the armor absorbed or deflected all of it. They're practically invulnerable to conventional weapons." Ryu nodded grimly. The technology was impressive, but he knew it came with a price. The xenomaterials were difficult to work with and sometimes dangerous. 3 engineers had died during the development process when experimental systems overloaded. The neural interfaces could cause permanent brain damage if used too long. The quantum weapons were unstable and might malfunction at critical moments, but they didn't have a choice. The Corvins were coming with overwhelming force, and humanity's survival depended on these untested weapons. "Sir," his communications officer said, "we're getting a priority transmission from Earth. The Corvin fleet has passed Jupiter and is accelerating toward Mars. They'll be here in 6 hours. "Signal all ships," Ryu ordered. "Testing phase is over. This is now a combat operation." In space between Mars and Jupiter, the Corvin fleet moved steadily toward its target. War General Thexnor stood on his command bridge, confident that the humans would surrender before the first shot was fired. His ships had just destroyed a civilian colony without losing a single vessel. Now they were approaching the humans' outer defensive line, which consisted of maybe 30 small ships and a few orbital platforms. "Sir," his weapons officer reported, "we're detecting the human fleet near Mars. They appear to be arranging themselves in a defensive formation." "How many ships?" Thexnor asked. "Approximately 30 vessels, sir. All of them are the same class we encountered at the diplomatic meeting. No significant upgrades or improvements visible." Thexnor made his version of a laugh, a harsh sound, like grinding metal. 30 ships. They're going to fight 50 of our warships with 30 primitive vessels. These humans are either incredibly brave or incredibly stupid." "Perhaps both, sir," his science officer suggested. "Signal the human fleet," Thexnor ordered. "Give them one last chance to surrender. Tell them that if they move aside, we will only destroy their military installations when we reach Earth. Their civilian population will be spared if they cooperate." The message was transmitted, but no reply came back from the human fleet. "Sir," the communications officer reported, "the first shot came from the Incheon's Fury. Captain Lim Tae-hyun watched through his neural interface as the quantum disruptor fired, sending an invisible pulse of energy toward the lead Corvin ship. To any observer, it looked like nothing had happened. But 3 seconds later, the massive alien vessel's energy shields flickered and went dark. "Direct hit!" his weapons officer reported with excitement. "Their shields are down completely." War General Thexnor stared at his tactical display in confusion. "What happened to our shields?" "Unknown, sir," his chief engineer replied, panic creeping into his voice. "All shield generators are functioning normally, but the energy field has collapsed. We're completely exposed." Before Thexnor could respond, conventional missiles from 3 different human ships struck his flagship. The weapons that the Corvins had dismissed as primitive tore through the unprotected hull, causing explosions throughout the ship. "All ships, return fire!" Thexnor roared. "Destroy those insects!" The Corvin fleet opened fire with their energy weapons, sending massive beams of destruction toward the human formation. But something impossible happened. The beams struck the human ships and simply disappeared, absorbed by hull armor that shouldn't have been able to withstand such attacks. Admiral Ryu Jae-won watched from his command ship as the battle began. The adaptive armor was working perfectly, changing its molecular structure to absorb the Corvin energy weapons. What should have been devastating attacks were being turned into harmless light shows. "Sir," his tactical officer reported, "all ships are reporting successful shield penetrations. The quantum disruptors are working exactly as designed." "Excellent," Ryu said. "Phase 2. All ships begin evasive maneuvers. Show them how fast we can really move." The human fleet suddenly exploded into motion. Ships that had been moving at normal speeds suddenly accelerated to velocities that should have been impossible for chemical rockets. They weaved between the Corvin vessels like fighters instead of capital ships, their improved engines allowing maneuvers that defied everything the aliens thought they knew about human technology. Pilot An Seo-jun led a squadron of small attack ships called the Ghost Squadron. His vessel, the Phantom Strike, was one of the most advanced ships in the human fleet. As he dove between 2 massive Corvin cruisers, his neural targeting system showed him exactly where to shoot for maximum damage. "Ghost 2, follow my lead," he said to his wingman. "Target their engine sections. The predictive system shows they'll try to turn left in. 3, 2, 1, now." The Corvin ships turned exactly as predicted, exposing their vulnerable engine compartments to An's attack. His quantum-enhanced missiles struck the alien engines, causing explosions that sent one of the massive ships spinning out of control. "How did he know we were going to turn?" asked the Corvin captain of the damaged ship. On the human side, the neural targeting systems were working better than anyone had hoped. The alien AI they called the Teacher had somehow learned to predict Corvin tactics by analyzing their movement patterns. Every human pilot could see what the enemy was going to do before they did it. Commander Oh Min-jae brought his ship, the Soul's Vengeance, directly into the center of the Corvin formation. His vessel's new stealth technology made it nearly invisible to their sensors, appearing as nothing more than a small piece of space debris. "Sir, this is insane," his navigation officer said nervously. "We're completely surrounded by enemy ships." "Exactly where we want to be," Oh replied calmly. "When you're invisible and they can't hit you, the middle of their formation is the safest place to be." He was right. The Soul's Vengeance moved through the Corvin fleet like a ghost, striking at ships from close range and then disappearing before they could respond. The confused aliens began firing at each other, thinking they were under attack from multiple directions. War General Thexnor watched his tactical display with growing horror. His fleet of 50 ships was being systematically destroyed by 30 human vessels that shouldn't have been able to scratch his armor. Worse, the humans were demonstrating technologies that his science team said were impossible. "How are they moving so fast?" he demanded. "Unknown, sir," his science officer replied. "Their engines appear to be the same chemical rockets we scanned before, but they're producing 10 times more thrust than should be possible." "And their weapons? How are they penetrating our shields?" "We don't know, sir. The attacks appear to be coming from inside our shield matrices, as if the energy fields are being turned against themselves." Another explosion rocked Thexnor's flagship as human missiles found their target. "Sir, we've lost main engines and half our weapon systems. Hull breaches on decks 7 through 12. "This is impossible," Thexnor snarled. "They're just humans. They can't have developed this technology so quickly." But impossible or not, it was happening. The Corvin fleet was being torn apart by an enemy they had dismissed as primitive and weak. Ships that had conquered worlds were being destroyed by vessels they had thought were made of scrap metal. Captain Kim Woo-jin commanded the dreadnought Gangnam's Hammer, one of the largest ships in the human fleet. His vessel had been completely rebuilt with xenomaterial technology, turning it into something that looked like a normal battleship but fought like a weapon from the far future. "Sir, we're in position behind their main battle line," his weapons officer reported. "Fire the Nova Cannon," Kim ordered. The Nova Cannon was humanity's most powerful weapon, based on technology they barely understood. When it fired, it created a small artificial star that lasted for exactly 1 second before burning out. That 1 second was enough to melt through the hulls of 3 Corvin ships. "Direct hit on 3 targets," the weapons officer announced. "All 3 ships are showing critical damage." The Corvin response was immediate but useless. They turned every weapon they had on the Gangnam's Hammer, but the ship's adaptive armor absorbed the energy attacks and converted them into power for its own systems. The more they shot at it, the stronger it became. "This is impossible," one of the Corvin captains broadcast on an open channel. "How can metal armor absorb plasma weapons?" "Because it's not just metal anymore," Kim said to his crew with satisfaction. The tide of battle had completely turned. What started as a confident Corvin attack had become a desperate fight for survival. Human ships were everywhere, striking from unexpected angles with weapons that shouldn't exist. The aliens superior. Numbers meant nothing when their technology was being outmatched at every turn. Admiral Ryu watched the tactical display with grim satisfaction. The battle was going better than he had dared to hope, but he knew it wasn't over yet. The Corvins still had more ships, and desperate enemies could be extremely dangerous. "Sir," his communications officer reported, "we're receiving a transmission from the Corvin flagship. War General Thexnor wants to speak with you." "Put him through." Thexnor's face appeared on the main screen. The proud Corvin general looked confused and angry, with smoke visible in the background of his damaged bridge. "Human Admiral," Thexnor said. "What trickery is this? How are your primitive ships defeating advanced Corvin technology?" "No trickery," Ryu replied calmly. "Just human engineering. You made the mistake of thinking that simple appearance meant simple capability. Impossible. We scanned your ships. We analyzed your technology. You should not be able to do this." "You scanned what we wanted you to see," Ryu said. "You analyzed the technology we chose to show you. Did you really think humanity would reveal all its secrets to a potential enemy?" Thexnor's yellow eyes widened with understanding and rage. You deliberately made yourselves appear weak. This was a trap." "Not a trap," Ryu corrected. "A test. We wanted to see what kind of species we were dealing with. When you destroyed Titan and killed 20,000 civilians, you showed us exactly what you are." "This battle isn't over, human. We still have ships left." "Yes, you do," Ryu agreed. "The question is, do you want to lose them all here? Or would you prefer to retreat and tell your empire what you've learned?" The transmission ended as another human attack crippled 2 more Corvin ships. Thexnor's fleet was down to less than half its original strength, while the humans had lost only 3 vessels. Lieutenant Commander Park Dong-yun, serving as Admiral Ryu's intelligence officer, was monitoring Corvin communications. "Sir, they're trying to call for reinforcements from their home system. Should we jam their signals?" "No," Ryu said thoughtfully. "Let them call. I want the Corvin Empire to know what happened here." "Sir?" Park looked confused. They came here expecting an easy victory over a primitive species. Instead, they're getting destroyed by technology they can't understand. When word of this battle reaches their home worlds, every Corvin commander is going to think twice before attacking humanity. The battle continued for another hour, but the outcome was no longer in doubt. The Corvin fleet was being systematically destroyed by human ships that seemed to violate every law of physics. Vessels that should have been helpless against alien technology were dancing around their enemies like fighters, striking with weapons that penetrated every defense. Captain Lim Tae-hyun brought the Incheon's Fury alongside a damaged Corvin cruiser. The alien ship was drifting helplessly, its engines destroyed and its weapons offline. "This is Captain Lim of the human vessel Incheon's." War General Thexnor limped back to Corvin space with only 18 ships left from his original fleet of 50. The journey home took 3 weeks, and every day he dreaded what would happen when he had to explain the disaster to the Supreme Council. The Corvin home system was a fortress. 3 heavily defended worlds surrounded by orbital weapons platforms and patrol fleets. For 1,000 years, no enemy had ever threatened the heart of the Corvin Empire. But when Thexnor's battered fleet arrived, they brought news that would change everything. You lost to humans? Supreme Commander Kexvar could barely believe the report. He was the largest Corvin Thexnor had ever seen, with battle scars covering, his dark scales and eyes that glowed like yellow fire. 30 primitive ships defeated 50 of our best warships? They weren't primitive, Thexnor said carefully. Their technology was far more advanced than our scouts reported. They had weapons we've never seen before, armor that absorbed our energy blasts, and ships that moved faster than should be possible. Impossible, hissed Science Commander Veltara, a thin Corvin with cold blue eyes. We analyzed their technology. Metal hulls, chemical rockets, basic computers. There's no way they could develop advanced weapons so quickly. I saw it myself, Thexnor insisted. Their ships became invisible. Their armor turned our weapons against us, and they could predict our movements before we made them. It was like fighting ghosts that could see the future. The Supreme Council chamber fell silent. The idea that primitive humans could defeat advanced Corvin technology was unthinkable. But Thexnor's damaged ships and dead crews were proof that something had gone terribly wrong. Sir, a young intelligence officer interrupted nervously. We're receiving reports from our spy networks. Earth has been broadcasting news of the battle throughout their system. They're calling it a great victory. Show me, Kexvar ordered. The main screen displayed intercepted human communications. Images of the battle showed Corvan ships being destroyed by vessels that looked exactly like the primitive craft they had analyzed months ago. But these ships were moving and fighting like nothing in Corvan experience. They made fools of us, Veltara said with growing anger. They showed us exactly what they wanted us to see while hiding their real capabilities. More than that, Thexnor said grimly. I think this was all planned. They knew we would attack, and they were ready for us. What the Corvins didn't know was that their communications were being intercepted by human listening posts scattered throughout space. Every word of their council meeting was being transmitted back to Earth, where Admiral Song Hyejin and her staff were learning valuable information about their enemies. They're planning a larger attack, reported Intelligence Officer Park Dong-hyun from his station on Luna Base. Intercepts suggest they're calling in fleets from other star systems. They want to overwhelm us with numbers. Admiral Song studied the intelligence reports with growing concern. The first battle had been a victory, but it had also revealed humanity's new capabilities to their enemies. The next attack would be much more dangerous. How long before they can mount a serious offensive? She asked. Maybe 6 months, Park replied. They're moving fleets from the outer territories, but it takes time to coordinate that many ships. Good. That gives us time to prepare. Admiral Song turned to her staff. Signal General Yoon Min-seok. Tell him to begin Phase 2 of the Prometheus Plan. General Yoon Min-seok commanded Earth's Special Operations Forces, but he had been working on a secret project that went far beyond normal military activities. While the Corvins thought they were dealing with a defensive enemy, Yoon had been preparing for something much more aggressive. Ma'am, his aide said as he read the message from Admiral Song. We're authorized to begin Phase 2. Should I alert the strike teams? Yes, Yoon said with satisfaction. It's time to show the Corvins that humans don't just defend. We hunt. The plan had been years in the making. Human scout ships disguised as simple cargo vessels had been mapping Corvin space and identifying key targets. Now those same ships would guide strike forces deep into enemy territory. Captain Shin Yewon commanded the first strike group. Her ship, the Ghost of Seoul, was one of the new stealth vessels that could become completely invisible to most sensors. Along with 5 other stealth ships, she was heading for a Corvin supply depot in a system 3 light-years from Earth. Remember, she told her crew as they approached the target, we're not just attacking their supplies, we're sending a message. The Corvins think they can attack our civilians and retreat to safety. We're going to prove them wrong. The Corvin supply depot was a massive facility built around an asteroid. It provided fuel and weapons to Corvin fleets throughout the region, and it was considered completely safe from human attack. After all, how could primitive humans travel so far from their home system? The answer came in the form of 6 ships that appeared from nowhere and began systematically destroying everything in sight. The depot's defenses were designed to stop conventional attacks, not vessels that could phase in and out of normal space. Unknown. "Ships!" the depot commander broadcast desperately. "Identify yourselves immediately!" "This is Captain Shin Yuan of the Human Defense Force," came the reply. "You attacked our colony at Titan and killed 20,000 civilians. Consider this a response." The depot's weapons opened fire, but they couldn't hit targets. They couldn't. See? The human ships struck with precision, destroying fuel tanks and weapons storage areas while leaving the main structure intact. They wanted survivors to carry the message home. When the attack was over, the depot was crippled, but not destroyed. Captain Shin broadcast one final message before her ships disappeared back into space. "Tell your commanders that Earth remembers Titan. Tell them that nowhere in Corvin space is safe anymore." Similar attacks began happening throughout Corvin territory. Supply depots were destroyed, patrol ships disappeared, and communication relays went dark. The humans weren't just defending their home system anymore. They were actively hunting Corvin forces wherever they could find them. Major Bay Sunho led ground operations on a Corvin mining world called Vexhara. His team of 50 special forces soldiers had landed on the planet under cover of night, using stealth technology that made them invisible to Corvin sensors. "Remember," he told his troops, "we're not here to conquer territory. We're here to capture prisoners and gather intelligence. The Admiral wants to know everything about their military capabilities." The mission was a complete success. Bay's team captured a Corvin research facility that was developing new weapons, along with 12 scientists and a complete database of technical information. By the time Corvin security forces arrived, the humans were already gone, leaving behind only empty buildings and confused guards. "How did they get past our orbital defenses?" demanded the facility commander. "We don't know," his security chief replied. "There's no record of any ships entering the system. It's like they appeared from nowhere." Back on Earth, Dr. Seo Minji was analyzing the captured Corvin technology with excitement. "This is incredible," she told her research team. "Their weapons are powerful, but they're also very specialized. They're designed to fight enemies who use similar technology." "What does that mean for us?" asked Dr. Park Yuna. "It means they have no idea how to fight ships that can become invisible, or armor that adapts to different attacks, or weapons that bypass energy shields," Dr. Seo explained. "They're like ancient warriors trying to fight modern soldiers. They have strength, but we have technology they can't comprehend." The captured intelligence also revealed something disturbing. The Corvin Empire was much larger than humanity had realized, with colonies in dozens of star systems and fleets numbering in the thousands of ships. Even with their advanced technology, Earth would be overwhelmed if the Corvins could bring their full military might to bear. But the aliens were also having problems. The human attacks were causing panic throughout Corvin space. Trade routes were being disrupted, military commanders were afraid to venture beyond heavily defended systems, and there were reports of rebellions on conquered worlds. "Sir," reported Commander Lee Subin from her intelligence station, "we're intercepting communications from 3 different Corvin colonies. They're reporting attacks by ghost ships that appear and disappear without warning." Admiral Song studied the reports with satisfaction. "How many ships are we actually using for these operations?" "Maybe 20 vessels total," Lee replied. "But the Corvins think they're facing a much larger force. They're pulling ships back from their frontier zones to protect their core systems." "Excellent. Fear is a weapon too." The psychological effect of the human attacks was even more devastating than the physical damage. For 1,000 years, Corvin forces had been the hunters, conquering weaker species and expanding their empire. Now they were the prey, constantly. Looking over their shoulders for enemies that could strike from anywhere, Captain Kim Woo-jin led the most daring raid of all. His target was a Corvin command station in orbit around their secondary capital world. The station coordinated military operations for an entire sector, and its destruction would blind Corvin forces throughout the region. "Sir," his tactical officer said nervously, "there are 40 Corvin warships protecting that station. Even with our new technolo." Supreme Commander Keksavar stood in the war room of the Corvin High Command, watching red marks spread across the tactical display like a disease. Each mark represented a human attack, a destroyed facility, or a missing patrol. In 6 months, The primitive species they had dismissed as insects had crippled Corvan operations across 3 star systems. "Sir," Intelligence Commander Veltara reported, her voice shaking with barely controlled anger. "We've lost contact with the Outer Rim Defense Fleet. 30 ships, gone without a trace." "How is this possible?" Kexvar roared. "They're just humans. One small planet against the might of the Corvan Empire." "Sir," a young communications officer interrupted nervously. "We're receiving a transmission. It's coming from inside our home system." "Impossible," Veltara hissed. "Our defenses would detect any approaching fleet." But the main screen activated, showing a human face that the Corvans had learned to fear. Admiral Song Hyejin appeared calm and professional, standing on what was clearly the bridge of a warship. "Supreme Commander Kexvar," Admiral Song said, "I am Admiral Song Hyejin of the United Earth Defense Force. I believe we need to talk." "How did you get past our defenses?" Kexvar demanded. "The same way we've been getting past your defenses for months," Song replied. "You still don't understand what you're fighting, do you? You see primitive ships and assume primitive minds. That's been your mistake from the beginning." Around the Corvan homeworld, space seemed empty, but appearances were deceiving. Cloaked in stealth fields that bent light and deflected sensors, the largest human fleet ever assembled hung in the darkness like invisible predators. 200 ships, each one equipped with technology that the Corvans couldn't detect or understand. Fleet Admiral Cho Sungmin commanded the invasion force from his flagship, the Earth's Fury. Around him, holographic displays showed the positions of every Corvan defense platform, every patrol ship, every weapon emplacement. Human intelligence had been mapping this system for months, preparing for this moment. "All ships report ready, Admiral," his tactical officer announced. "Signal the strike groups," Cho ordered. "Operation Prometheus is a go. Show the Corvans what happens when they attack Earth." The first targets were the orbital defense platforms. Captain Yoon Ji-won led the assault, her stealth squadron materializing next to the massive weapons platforms, like ghosts becoming solid. The platform's crews had no warning before quantum disruptors collapsed their shields and nova cannons melted their hulls. "Platform 7 is destroyed," Yoon reported. "Platform 12 is destroyed. Platform 15 is destroyed." One by one, the defenses that had protected the Corvan homeworld for centuries disappeared in flashes of artificial starfire. The defenders tried to fight back, but they couldn't hit targets they couldn't see. Commander Na Ha-jin coordinated the orbital bombardment of the planet's surface. His ship, the Vengeance of Titan, had been specifically equipped with precision weapons designed to cripple infrastructure without causing mass civilian casualties. "Remember," he told his weapons crews, "we're not barbarians like them. Target military installations, government buildings, and communications centers. Avoid civilian areas." The bombardment was a work of art and science. Human weapons, guided by artificial intelligence systems that could predict Corvan responses, struck with surgical precision. Military bases vanished in controlled explosions. Government complexes were reduced to rubble. Communication towers toppled like cut trees. On the planet's surface, panic spread through the Corvan capital city as explosions lit the sky. For 1,000 years, no enemy had threatened the home world. Now death was falling from space, and their mighty defenses were powerless to stop it. "Sir," a Corvan general reported to Kexvar, "we're under attack from orbit. Our surface defenses are being systematically destroyed." "How many ships?" Kexvar demanded. We don't know, sir. Our sensors can't get a clear count. The attacking vessels appear and disappear like phantoms." War General Thexnor, monitoring the battle from his damaged flagship, finally understood what the humans had done. "They're not attacking randomly," he told his staff. "This is a carefully planned operation. They've been studying us for months, learning our weaknesses, preparing for this exact moment. Sir, should we recall our fleets from the outer systems?" "It's too late," Thexnor said bitterly. "By the time they get here, the battle will be over. We're on our own." Captain Lee Subin led a strike team aboard one of the Corvan command ships. Her Marines, equipped with adaptive armor and quantum weapons, moved through the alien vessel like a force of nature. Corvan security forces tried to stop them, but their weapons were useless against human technology. "Corridor secured," reported Sergeant Park Minjae. Enemy forces are retreating to the bridge. Good, Lee said. Remember, we want prisoners. The Admiral needs information about their remaining fleets. The human Marines reached the bridge to find the Corvin crew trying to destroy their computers. But it was too late. Human hackers, guided by the alien AI they called the Teacher, had already copied everything in the ship's database. Sir, the captured Corvin captain said in broken English, why are you doing this? We offered you peace. You offered slavery, Lee corrected. And you killed 20,000 of our people on Titan. This is what happens when you mistake mercy for weakness. In the Corvin High Command Center, Supreme Commander Kexavar watched his empire's greatest fortress crumble around him. Half the orbital defenses were gone, the planet's surface military installations were burning, and human ships continued to appear from nowhere, striking with weapons that seemed to violate the laws of physics. Sir, Veltara said desperately, we have to surrender. Our defenses are collapsing. Never, Kexavar snarled. The Corvin Empire does not bow to primitives. Then the Corvin Empire will burn, said a new voice. They turned to see human soldiers entering the command center. Admiral Song Hyejin walked among them, her uniform pristine, her expression cold as space. Behind her came Marines in armor that seemed to absorb light itself. How did you get in here? Kexavar demanded. The same way we got past all your other defenses, Song replied. Superior technology and careful planning. Your guards are unconscious, not dead. We're not monsters like some species I could mention. You cannot defeat the entire Corvin Empire, Veltara said. We have fleets in dozens of systems. Even if you conquer our homeworld, we will rebuild and return with overwhelming force. Admiral Song smiled, but it was not a pleasant expression. Commander Na, show them the intelligence reports. Commander Na Ha-Jin activated a holographic display that showed the current status of Corvin fleets throughout their territory. System after system showed red warnings indicating destroyed or missing ships. Your outer fleets are gone, Song explained calmly. Our strike forces have been hunting them for months. Your supply lines are cut. Your communication networks are destroyed. And your allies have learned what happens to species that threaten Earth. Impossible, Kexavar breathed. You still don't understand, Song continued. When you attacked Titan, you didn't just kill our people. You taught us that the Corvin Empire was a threat that had to be eliminated. So we eliminated it. The holographic display zoomed out to show the entire Corvin Empire. What had once been a mighty interstellar power was now a collection of isolated systems with no central command and no ability to coordinate their remaining forces. Your empire is finished, Song said. Your fleets are scattered, your worlds are defenseless, and your government is captured. The only question now is what happens next. What do you want? Kexavar asked, his voice heavy with defeat. Unconditional. Surrender, Song replied. Full reparations for the Titan massacre, and a promise that no Corvin ship will ever threaten human space again. And if we refuse? Song gestured toward the windows. Outside, the Corvin capital city was burning. Explosions continued to light the sky as human ships completed the destruction of military targets. The greatest fortress in Corvin space had fallen in less than 4 hours. Look around you, Song said. Your capital is in ruins. Your fleets are destroyed. Your empire is dead. Refuse our terms and we'll finish what you started when you attacked our colony. Kexavar looked around the command center at his defeated officers. Veltara was staring at the tactical display in shock. Thexnor had collapsed into a chair, his career and his empire both destroyed. The other Corvin commanders looked like broken toys. What? What are your terms? He asked finally. Admiral Song smiled grimly. Complete withdrawal from all conquered worlds. Reparations paid to the families of Titan victims. And most importantly, you will spread the word throughout the galaxy that Earth is under human protection. Any species that threatens our world will face the same fate as your empire. The other powers will never believe that humans could defeat us so completely. Then show them the recordings, Song said. Show them what happens when you underestimate humanity. Show them what it looks like when the hunter becomes the prey. Fleet Admiral Cho Sungmin's voice came through the communication system. Admiral Song, all military targets have been neutralized. The Corvin home fleet is completely destroyed, awaiting further orders. Secure the orbital space and begin recovery. Operations, Song ordered. And signal Earth. Tell them that the Corvin threat has been permanently